If your vehicle is equipped with a hubcap, you want to go ahead and grab the hubcap, gently tug away. You want to go ahead and set that aside. Using an 18mm socket, you want to go ahead and remove the lug nuts. Remove the wheel and set it aside. Using an 18mm wrench, we're going to go ahead and loosen this ball joint nut. I'm not going to remove it yet, just loosen it so that there's some space between the ball joint and the knuckle. I'm going to put an 18mm wrench up and over the rear part of the control arm and onto the nut on top of this bolt right here. Let's go ahead and loosen this and remove it. Let's now go ahead and remove this bolt here. Now once we've removed the forward mounted bolt, we're going to come back to the rear control arm area and we're just going to loosen this bolt here. Let's go ahead and remove this nut. I'm going to go ahead and strike the knuckle to loosen the ball joint, and then we'll separate the control arm from the knuckle. Go ahead, pull the ball joint out, and use a pry bar to go ahead and pull the control arm out. Using a 15mm socket, we're going to go ahead and remove these 3 nuts holding the ball joint to the control arm. Go ahead and separate the ball joint. Once you get the ball joint on, go ahead and install the nuts, and then we'll go ahead and snug those down. Get the rear part of the control arm up and in. You can swing the control arm. Use a rubber mallet to get that in there on the inside of the backing plate here, and we'll work this up and in. Once we get that forward portion of the control arm lined up, we'll go ahead and install our bolt. And just wiggle the control arm around a little bit, and then we'll go ahead and get that bolt started by hand. And go ahead and get your ball joint lined up. Get that pressed up into place, and we'll go ahead and get that nut installed. Now with your vehicle supported on jack stands, you can go ahead and use a jack and get it underneath the control arm. I'm going to go ahead and raise the suspension up a little bit. This is going to do 2 things for us. It's going to help us put some more tension on this ball joint so we can tighten this down and torque it. And it's also going to help us line up the rearward control arm bolt into the chassis. All right, once we get this bolt good and hand tight, let's go ahead and line up the rearward control arm bolt. Remove the jack from underneath the control arm. I'm going to try. So go ahead and tighten up this bolt here. This should squeeze this alignment pin so I can get the bolt straight up and in. With that bolt up and in, we'll go ahead and put our nut up on top of that there. And get that threaded on. And let's go ahead and get this snugged down. go ahead and torque these 3 nuts for the ball joint to the control arm to 100 Newton metrics, or Newton meters. The ball joint to the knuckle should be torqued to 60 Newton meters. We're gonna go ahead and use our wrench and tighten this up. If you have the ability to do so and torquing it, go ahead and do so. Now, if you're doing this job at home, you want to go ahead and replace these bolts with factory bolts from Volkswagen. At this point here, we're going to reuse our original bolts. We're going to torque them down to 70 foot-pounds. New bolts will be 70 foot-pounds plus 90 degrees. All right, let's go ahead and get our wheel installed. Line that up, and we're going to go ahead and get one of the lug struts lined up and get these all threaded in by hand. Once we have those installed, let's go ahead and snug them down. I'm going to go ahead and torque the wheels down to 89 foot-pounds. Once you get your wheel torqued down, you want to go ahead and get the vehicle down to have an alignment done. If your wheel is equipped with a hubcap, you want to watch for this little U-notch in the cap. That's where your valve stem is going to line up through. Line up the cap and tap the cap into place.